First notes video of geometry. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Unit 1, Notes 1, and today we're just going to do a little bit of a review of graphing to start off with. So let's take a look at some of those graphing terms that we may not really remember. So starting off with, I want to talk about an ordered pair. Now typically we look at an ordered pair and we see two things in it. It looks like this. There's an x and there's a y. So it's a point xy. Okay, and so when we write it that way, what it represents is a point on the coordinate plane. So this right here is a point on the coordinate plane. And hopefully you can write a lot neater than I can, because this is not pretty. Okay, so that's a point x and a point y. So what I want you to notice about this first and foremost is that x comes first. Where it crosses the x-axis is going to be where your x point is where it's going to be in the first spot. Where it's going to be on the y is going to be in the second spot. So x, then y. Okay, so the x-coordinate, again, just to make that really clear, is the first number. But also something that we need to know about the x-coordinate is that's the one that goes horizontally. It goes left to right. So the x-coordinate is either going to tell us how much left we need to go or how much right we need to go. Left is going to be negative if you want to make a note to yourself, and right is going to be positive. Okay, so left is negative, right is positive. Let's take a look at the y-coordinate. And the y-coordinate is going to be represented by the second number in the coordinate point. Okay, then that's going to represent up or down. So the y, when you're talking about your coordinate plane, is that vertical axis. So if you maybe want to make a note to yourself about that. So we're talking about up or down. Now down is going to be negative. Down is represented by the negative number. Up is represented if it's positive. So let's go ahead and take a look at a coordinate plane itself. So let's take a look at this guy. All I want to do right now is just refamiliarize ourselves with this. Now, if you really want to be mathematically savvy, this is called the Cartesian coordinates. Okay, that's what this whole graph is called. But let's go ahead and let's talk about that a little bit. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to label my axes. Remember, x is the one that goes horizontally. So this right here is my x-axis. Y is the one that goes vertically, so that right there is my y-axis. Now you may or may not have heard this word before, but what I'm going to do is this is quadrant 1. Now quadrant's kind of a fun word. Random side fact, the word quad actually means 4, which makes sense because we have 4 of them. So that's quadrant 1. Then this right here is going to be quadrant 2. And we're just going to work our way counterclockwise. This is going to be quadrant 3. And here we're going to have finally quadrant 4. Okay, you might hear me say, oh, that point is going to end up in quadrant 2. That point's going to end up in quadrant 4. That's what this is referencing right here. Now here's one thing I get a lot from students. Say, Ms. Hummer, why does that have to be quadrant 1? Does it really actually matter? And it does. Because what you'll notice about these are the positive versus the negative. So in quadrant 1, both the x and the y are positive. That makes quadrant 1 really, really important. Because both of them are positive, that's where a lot of our word problems are going to come from. So if we're graphing a word problem, it's going to come from that positive coordinate, okay? Because we don't usually deal with negatives in terms of word problems. And so when businesses use this math a lot, they will use that first quadrant. Quadrant 2, your x is going to be negative and your y is going to be positive. Quadrant 3, your both are going to be negative, x and y. And finally, quadrant 4, your x is positive and your y is negative. So that's just a good thing to know. So if you see a point and it has a positive number then a negative number, you should be thinking, okay, I know that's going to be in my fourth quadrant. And that's a way you can make sure you graph it correctly. So let's take a look at one of these. Let's just graph some points. That's all I really want to do right now is just graph some points. So first, let's graph the point 0, 4. Okay, so we're going to graph the point 0, 4. So then we're going to go over 0. Okay, so that's my x. Remember, points go x, then y. So I'm going over 0, up 4. So that's up 1, 2, 3, 4. So I just went up 4 here, and I'm going to plot that point. So that's my first point. Then I want to plot the point 2, 0. So I'm going to go over 2 and up 0. That's my next point. Oops, right here. That's working out real well for me, isn't it, guys? All right, there we go. Next is point -3, -2. Well, since it's negative in the x-coordinate, I know I need to go to the left. Since it's negative in the y-coordinate, I know I need to go down. So I'm going to go left 3, down 2, and I'm going to plot that point right there. Okay, so that's my next point. Then finally, I'm going to go 6, 1. So I'm going over 6, up 1. So I'm going over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and up 1. So I'm going to plot that point right there. Okay, so that's just getting some practice plotting points, and we're going to be doing a lot of this throughout geometry because we're going to be dealing a lot with shapes. So let's take a second and let's talk about some shapes. So let's keep going. So a polygon. Okay, so we're talking about a polygon is a closed figure made up of segments or a shape. So let's write that down. A polygon is a closed figure, I should say closed figure made of shapes, of segments, sorry, is made of segments. Typically, you've seen the word polygon as the word shapes. All a polygon is a shape. It's a closed figure made of segments. So this could be a polygon. Oops, it should be closed. Miss Humbert could draw. That would help a lot better, wouldn't it? So this is a polygon here. This is a polygon because there's a bunch of segments and it's closed. Vertices are the common, so we're going to write that, the common endpoints of two segments. So all a vertice really is a point. A vertice is no different than a point. So that's where we're taking what you've learned with graphing lines and we're putting it into geometry terms because we're moving into geometry. So let's take a look at this one. It says graph a polygon with the vertices P, Q, R, S. Okay, so let's just plotting it 1 point at a time. Well, the first thing we know, again, just a reminder that a point goes X, then Y. So how many over and how many vertically? So the first thing I see for P is that we have a -1. So I know I need to go left 1. And then I have a +1, so I need to go up 1. So I'm going to plot this point right here, and that's going to be my P. Next, let's take a look at Q. So we're going to go ahead and plot Q. Well, I notice that Q is 3, 1. So I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go up 1. And I'm going to plot that point. So I'm going to plot that point right there as Q. Next, I'm going to plot R. So for R, I know I'm going over 1 and then up 1, 2, 3, 4. So how many are going right? How many are going up? I know I'm going right and up because they're both positive. So now I'm going to plot that point. So that's my R. Last but not least is my S. For my S, I'm going left 3, 1, 2, 3, and up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be my next point right there. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect all of these dots so that I can form a polygon. Now this polygon has 4 sides. Okay, and we're going to learn how to identify what polygon is which later on in geometry. So that's really all I have for you for this note sheet. So why don't you come and once you're done, show Miss Humbert that you're done and she will give you the next step. Thanks for listening.